Gli americani stanno cercando di tagliare il film e arriverò forse anche a un processo, perlomeno a ritirare il mio nome se questi si ostinano a non farlo uscire nella versione originale. Ma io credo che i film siano lunghi fin quanto o quando annoiano. Ecco, un film di 3 ore e 40 può sembrare un film di 1 ora e un film di 1 ora e mezza può sembrare un film di 5 ore. E quindi dico, la verità sta in mezzo. Il pubblico, se vede lo spettacolo, è un film così, un film nostalgico, un film su un'America che a me mi ha appassionato e mi ha affascinato, non poteva che avere questa lunghezza e questa durata.
Once Upon a Time in America is a film about regret, about time slipping away, and about memories, and a man looking back at a life he can't change. And strangely, the making of the film itself went through something very similar, because the journey of making Once Upon a Time in America wasn't smooth. It was messy, painful, and almost tragic. Director Sergio Leone spent years trying to make this film, years shaping it into something deeply personal, only for the studio to cut it apart, rearrange it, and release something he barely recognised. And for a while, it looked like the film itself might disappear into memory, just like the world Noodles keeps trying to hold on to in the movie. Once Upon a Time in America was Sergio Leone's obsession. He spent more than a decade trying to bring it to life. He didn't want to make a conventional gangster film. He wanted to make something about time, about memory, about the feeling of looking back. And that's why the structure is fractured, why the film moves between childhood, adulthood and old age, why the scenes feel dreamlike, almost disconnected. Leone wasn't telling a linear story, he was trying to represent memory on screen. Sergio Leone's original cut was massive, over 3.5 hours long. He wanted the audience to feel the time passing, to live with the characters, to watch childhood dissolve into adulthood. And that wasn't meant to be fast or commercial, it was meant to be slow and patient. And when the film premiered in Europe, that's what audiences saw. A long, melancholic epic, a gangster film unlike anything else. But in America, the studio panicked. They believed audiences wouldn't accept the runtime. They thought the non-linear structure was confusing, and they worried it wouldn't perform. So they did something drastic. They cut it. They re-edited the entire film into chronological order. They removed over an hour of footage. They stripped away the dreamlike structure. They removed the emotional rhythm of it all. The film went from a focus on memory to a straightforward gangster story. But Once Upon a Time in America isn't designed to work that way. The meaning lives in the structure, the sadness lives in the transitions, and the regret lives in the fact that everything is out of order. Without that, the film loses its soul.
Now, I've seen the long version of this picture, which is being shown in Europe. I've seen the short version of this picture, which is being shown in the United States, and which I'm reviewing right now. The long version is much better. The short version is pretty much a lot of junk.
I've seen both versions too, and I think we ought to make it clear that the original European version is about 3 hours and 45 minutes long. This movie is about 2 hours and 20 minutes long. They have taken the entire structure, which was a whole beautiful situation of flashbacks and memories and fantasies, chopped out all of that material, put this in chronological order, and the irony is, if they didn't think the other version made any sense, this version is totally off the wall. And as far as I'm concerned, this movie has been destroyed. I just hope the longer version eventually gets a chance to be played.
Sergio Leone was devastated. He had spent years shaping something deeply personal, and now it had been reduced to something conventional. And then when they released the version in America, it failed. Critics didn't understand it, audiences didn't connect, and the film felt hollow, incomplete, and strangely lifeless. Because it wasn't Sergio Leone's film anymore. There really is something poetic about this. Once Upon a Time in America is about a man haunted by the past, by things that were lost. And the film itself experienced something similar, because Leone poured years into creating this epic only for it to be taken away.
A few weeks before it came out, they decided to use the assistant editor of Police Academy or something, to chop it all up and tell it in linear fashion, which is the whole point of how the story is made, was that it's not in linear fashion. I mean, it was the telling of the story that made it such an extraordinary film. And I remember it was a huge disappointment to me and so on, and Sergio had been so great, and you know, when we were at the Cannes Film Festival, where it had its world premiere, you know, the reviews and the response was so astounding. I remember one article that said, headline said, you know, filmmakers cast your films into the sea. Leone is here with Once Upon, you know, it was like, because it was like that. I mean, it just got this 15-minute standing ovation, and then was butchered, and I thought it must have broken his heart.
The film became fractured, just like Noodle's memories in the film. Scenes were missing, moments were lost, time was rearranged. It's like the film itself became a memory. And for a while, it seemed like Leone's true vision might never be seen properly. But over time, things began to change. Critics revisited the longer European version. Audiences discovered the film in its intended form, and the reputation of it slowly grew. People started to see what Leone had actually created. The film wasn't just a gangster story, it was something more fragile and more human. Eventually, restored versions brought Leone's structure back, the non-linear timeline, the dreamlike transitions, the emotional pacing, and suddenly the film made sense again. It suddenly felt exactly how Sergio Leone had intended. And it's such an interesting idea that a great film, just restructured, can become a baffling film.
Sheila Benson at the time voted it the worst movie of the year, and then 8 years later voted it the best movie of the decade, which I thought was really interesting. The best movie being Sergio's own cut, the worst movie being, of course, the cut that the studio released.
There's something deeply fitting about this journey, because Once More Time in America is about how life doesn't unfold cleanly. It's messy, painful, and full of regret. Sergio Leone's experience mirrors just that. Years of work, a vision compromised, a film misunderstood, and only years later rediscovered. It's almost like the film had to live through the same themes it explored. Just like Robert De Niro's Noodles looking back at his life, film had to wait for time to reveal what it truly was. Once More Time in America is about the harshness of life and the beauty that only emerges when we look back. Sergio Leone didn't just make a film about regret and passing time, he lived it.